Implementing SB 861. Can I get a show of hands of how many folks were here this morning? Okay, I should have asked the other question first. How many folks were not here this morning? Excellent, so welcome. So for the folks who are here this morning, you're going to hear some of the same information. What you will hear, the concepts will be similar, but what you will hear that is different is specifically those issues relating to production facilities and inland pipelines. So by way of introduction, my name is Yvonne Addassi. I'm the Deputy Administrator at the Office of Spill Prevention and Response, which means that I'm the number 2 for those long titles. But for purposes of today's meeting, I am your facilitator. So I will work to keep us on time. If there's a lot of questions that come out of at a particular point in time, I may ask you if you want to spend more time on that and try and keep things going. So again, thank you for your interest. And I'm just going to go over some general context about why OSPR called this meeting and how this is not the be-all and the end-all. This is the beginning of what we hope to be an ongoing area of collaboration. So our whole purpose in the scoping meeting is to provide an overview of the current concepts we have for our expansion into statewide. The person who's going to be speaking after me is Todd. He's one of our staff attorneys, and he's going to give you some very specifics about the changes in the law that provided for our expanded authority from the marine waters into state waters. Specifically today, for this afternoon, we're going to take a look at our concepts, which are very similar to what we have in the marine environment conceptually, and moving it into inland, having to do primarily with contingency plan requirements and certificates of financial responsibility. And also, obviously, this is because emergency regulations move very fast, and we don't have flexibility in whether or not we adopt emergency regulations. That is the requirement. So we wanted to get out as quickly as possible up and down the coast, to provide a forum to let you know what we're thinking, and so that you can give us feedback on whether or not that makes sense, if there need to be tweaks made to that, what those would be, so that we can actually generate a reasonable set of regulations. So this is just to give you an idea of the general flow of the session. For purposes of housekeeping, there is a sign-in sheet. Hopefully all of you signed in when you came in. Also on that table are sign-up sheets for work groups that we've set up. Reasonable worst case spill, drills and exercises, COFERs. There's a number of different workshops that we are hoping to follow up after these meetings that will provide a mechanism for more focused response on very specific ideas. As I said, Todd is going to be following up after me, and then we're going to have 2 different presentations, the majority of which will be covered by Chris Klump, who is the head of our preparedness unit within OSPR, and then Mike Zamora will be the last person who will be speaking on certificates of financial responsibility. We have Joy Lavin-Jones up here at the front. She is our regulations writer, lucky for us, because she does an excellent job. And today she is going to be taking notes. And so I may ask you to say, can you rephrase that so that we can get that input into the record. And then finally, at the end, I will be closing with what you can expect from us. So what happens after this meeting, what the time frames for the regulations, etc. The last couple of pieces of housekeeping I want to cover is the restrooms are out this door to the right, at the end of the hallway on the left. And if there's any reason that we need to evacuate this room, it's the same route. Out this door, to the right, and then through the double doors outside. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Am I forgetting anything, Chris? Okay. Okay, so in a slide, SB 861 provides funding and authority for OSPR to have a California oil spill planning and response program for waters of the state. Just a couple of things I think it's important for you to understand that we understand, okay? One is that we appreciate that there is a long, rich history of regulation in the inland environment. I know a number of you already have plans with Dogger, you may have state fire marshal plans, you may have EPA plans, you may have any of a number of other local and county plans as well, and we understand that. We're not interested in generating more plans. If indeed our requirements are consistent with other plans, then what you may be asked to do is to provide an addendum to that plan that has our specific requirements. We are not interested in conflicting requirements or duplicating requirements. We are interested in creating an effective program that can work throughout the state addressing oil spill on state waters. We also appreciate, because we've heard it a lot at these meetings and we've heard it a lot while the legislation was going through, that there are intrinsic differences between the marine environment and the inland environment. And it isn't just that we have tides on the marine side, it's that how production happens, how refineries are set up, how pipelines are set up, they're very different. We understand that, you know, the LEPCs are organized a little bit differently down here. There's a number of different response organizations that are set up differently as well. And so we need that feedback from you, because we've spent the last 23 to 24 years doing this program on the marine side. And so we come with those concepts. We were fortunate yesterday to have a tour around Bakersfield. We went up to Panoramic and saw the fields there. We also went out to the Plains facility that is, as you probably all know, is gearing up to get in crude oil by rail. That was very helpful for us to get an idea of what these operations look like, and we'd like to get that feedback from you today as well. So again, we know that there's a lot going on here in inland, and we're sort of the new kids on the block, and we want to make sure that we get it right. And being able to get it right, we need to get that feedback from you. We are committed to folding into the framework and the enhanced capabilities here in the inland environment. And I know it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. We also understand that all response is local. It begins locally. And in California, there is that very, very strong local component. And even though the expansion of OSPR's authority helps address state response to oil spills in waters of the state, it does not address any of the ongoing concerns at the local level that has to do with training, equipment and personnel with the local fire departments and local emergency response organizations. This is a primary focus of the governor, and me and several other folks in different agencies are sitting on a work group that is trying to determine how it is that we better, as the state, we better support those training and equipment needs at the local level. But that is beyond the scope of OSPR and beyond the scope of today's meetings. We also are committed to utilizing the Unified Command System and SIMS ICS that is used at the local level. We've been doing that on the marine side for 25 years. It works very, very well, and we'll continue to do that on the inland side as well. So I already talked about integrating more fully into local planning. What you may not see in a Dogger plan, or what you may not see in a state fire marshal plan, that OSPR brings is the added protection for fish and wildlife of the state. So OSPR is the state trustee authority. We are in the Department of Fish and Wildlife, for those of you who remember the Department of Fish and Game. I've been here for a long time, and you may hear me say game again and again. It is the same agency. And so whereas some of your plans may say, you know, you have to contain the area here, it may not address how you further protect oil going into water and any site-sensitive strategies that may need to be done. Those would be some of the differences that our requirements would bring. OSPR is committed to integrate more fully into the statewide training. We know that through OES, through State Fire Marshal, there's a lot of training that goes on at the state level that is in deep support of what happens in local counties and city areas for their emergency response. We've been in discussions with them about how OSPR plays a part in that. Maybe we have an OSPR module that can actually talk about that. So I also wanted to say a little bit about, we appreciate, because we've heard it a lot, that folks are also concerned not just with the planning requirements and that we don't have 57 different plans to do some of the very same things, that people are also concerned that there are going to be drills upon drills upon drills upon drills. And so Chris is going to cover this in much more detail. But let me just say that from a concepts point of view, OSPR is interested in making sure that people are fully prepared and capable of responding to a spill. Drills is one of the ways to do that. And if you're drilling at the local level, then we might be able to utilize some of the information there for our requirements as well. A couple of things that are beyond the scope of OSPR. Again, firefighting, public health, emergency evacuations. We sit as a part of the Unified Command, but that jurisdiction is seated with other agencies. We will work in coordination with them, but again, that's not the focus of our requirements for this meeting. Again, we will work in coordination with other state and federal agencies to make sure that our requirements integrate and enhance current requirements and are not in conflict with them. Thank you for indulging me on that. I know it was a little bit hard for everybody to hear, so I'm just going to ask a raise of hands. How many people are here from protection facilities? I'm sorry, production facilities, what did I say? Sorry. How many folks are here with pipelines? Any railroad folks still here? We had some folks here this morning. OSROs? Excellent. Local agencies? Other state agencies? Federal agencies? Any NGOs or environmental groups here today? Anybody else who I didn't cover? Excellent. Thank you all very much. So again, this is the flow of the session for the day. We will take a break. I will gauge sort of where we are within the group and where Chris is within his presentations. And we'll take about a 15-minute break, and we'll do our best to get everybody out on time. So without further ado, I will introduce Ryan Todd, who is one of our staff attorneys and has been working very closely for the last several months on this topic.
I don't know if my voice is that loud. I don't mind walking around like Chris is going to do, but I'll just do it this way. So we're here because in June the legislature passed Senate Bill 861, and it's now law, so we have to implement it.
Who's the author of that bill?
It was a committee bill, I believe. Yeah, I think it was budget committee. So there wasn't any one author like you would normally see. So again, my name is Ryan Todd, and I've been with OSPR since 1993. So it was chaptered in June, and it had an emergency clause, so it became effective immediately. As you may know, legislation usually takes effect on January 1st, so there's some time to implement, develop implementation, but this bill is effective immediately, so that's why we're here today, to get your feedback and input. It built upon our 23-year program along the coast, which consists of these main elements. So we have the task of implementing these elements to the rest of the state. And what that means is we're looking at oil spills onto surface waters. So we're not doing groundwater, it's just surface waters. And what makes it new for the inland part of the state is it would be applicable to railroads, inland pipelines, and production wells. And as Yvonne said, we're the wildlife agency. It's our job to manage and protect and conserve critters and habitats. That's what we're focused on. As she said, we're not the firefighters. We wouldn't manage that part of an incident. we will, our involvement in Unified Command is critters and habitat and cleanup of state waters. So the regulations, as I mentioned, they're emergency. We're working on 2 regs packages here. We'll probably have a couple over the next months or year, but we're focused right now on contingency planning and financial responsibility. The regs will be, we're anticipating getting them on the street in late fall for formal public comments. And they'll be, once those go in place, they'll be on the books for a year, and then we will have to do this all over again formally. So there's an opportunity for these to kind of get up and running, and then we'll have a year to look at them again, which will be to everybody's benefit, I think. So the code requires these basic things in plans. You probably all have some sort of plan already for hazmat response and oil spill response, so these shouldn't be new. Maybe drills will be new for you, and we'll talk about drills later today. Maybe agents for service process is new, but that's just designating someone here in California that legal process can be served upon. As the trustee agency, we are required to set some standards for contingency planning, and our mandate is to try to accomplish best achievable protection in our requirements. Reasonable worst case spill is what drives the creation of those requirements, and what we're going to look at are response times and equipment, and that equipment that we're talking about is primarily on-water booming and containment and on-water recovery, skimming, and storage for what gets picked up. We have to set standards for use of cleanup contractors, and we rate, at least along the coast for some decade or so, we have been rating the cleanup company that plan holders use. So we will now have use of rated contractors throughout the state. You, as an operator, will have to have a rated OSRO starting January 2016. That gives us a year to develop a rating system for inland cleanup companies, and we'll talk about what that will mean and what that will look like in terms of geographically where the OSROs will respond to and where equipment will have to be positioned or available to respond to. And then the other key piece of it is strategies for protection, site protection along the coast. Those strategies come out of the area contingency plans. We want to develop geographic response plans for the inland part of the state. There are a couple that we need to get to a point where we have GRPs statewide. Financial responsibility is, basically pollution insurance. It's demonstrating that an operator can pay for cleanup and damages if they have a spill. Again, it's based on reasonable worst case spill volume, which we will talk about how that might be defined. And then these are the methods for demonstrating that you have those financial resources. We'll talk about drills later, but we've got a robust drills program that we've been doing for 20 years along the coast. It includes both announced and unannounced drills, so we'll be talking about drills for the inland part of the state. And all elements of the contingency plan must be drilled within 3 years. Something that might be new inland is the Oil Wildlife Care Network. Along the coast, we have a mandate for creating the network. It consists of 32 participating organizations. Basically, it's facilities that will be available for taking oil wildlife to for treatment and care. And it also includes organizations that will do search and rescue. And so that program, we'll be looking to developing relationships with inland care providers. We might be looking at a specific facility here in the Bakersfield area and maybe something in Northern California. Their budget was bumped up to $2.5 billion in AB 61, AB 61. And then your contingency plan must identify how you will take care of oil wildlife. And it can be as simple as just saying, I'm going to use the Oil Wildlife Care Network if I need to. Or alternatively, if you have some other way of handling and managing and properly treating wildlife, you can propose that in your spill plan. Reporting, the bill made clear that spill reporting is any amount in state waters. And that's the OES reporting requirement generally, but we're not going to, I understand there's a field rule, and we will keep the field rule, which includes any amount in state waters. And then the bill requires that OES's phone number be posted so that it is readily available. A key piece of the legislation was funding, our administrative funding. Since 1991, we've been collecting a 6.5-cent fee on oil brought into marine terminals. The legislation now provides that the fee will be collected on crude oil and petroleum brought into any refinery. So now it's oil fee being collected at both marine terminals and refineries statewide. And this allows us to fund our program statewide and provides stable funding, which we have not had for a couple decades. The Board of Equalization will be collecting the fee, and they have said they will start collecting the fee in the middle of September. And the legislation also made clear that our response fund to pay for cleanups, where the responsible party can't pay for cleanup, that has only been a coastal response fund, but now it is now available for funding cleanup in any state waters. And that's it. I'll move on to Chris Klump, and we'll get into the real nitty-gritty of today's discussion. Are there any questions? Or if you have questions, ask them later.